The Vrellian High Command had a list. Every soldier in the 9th Expeditionary Fleet knew about this list. It was not a list of enemy weapons. It was not a list of dangerous pathogens. It was not even a list of unstable star systems that could swallow a warship whole. It was a list of places where Vrellian soldiers were absolutely, categorically, under no circumstances whatsoever, allowed to go. Zone 7 Kappa was at the very top of that list. In bold. Underlined. With 3 warning symbols next to it that roughly translated to, "If you go here, do not expect us to send anyone to retrieve your body." Commander Drev Solak stood at the edge of the perimeter, staring at the rusted metal sign that humans had planted into the cracked earth. The sign read, in simple galactic standard, "Private property. Trespassers will be composted." He did not know what composted meant. His translator gave him 3 possible definitions. None of them were reassuring. "Sir," said Lieutenant Fax, standing directly behind him, "the scouts report movement inside the zone." "What kind of movement?" Drev asked. Fax checked his data pad. He blinked all 4 of his eyes in sequence, which was the Vrellian equivalent of a nervous tic. "Singing, sir." Drev turned slowly. "Singing." "Yes, sir." "And, what the scouts describe as, aggressively cheerful humming." The entire squad stood in absolute silence for a moment. Wind blew through the dead gray trees that surrounded Zone 7 Kappa. Somewhere in the distance, a bird made a sound that no one on the team could identify, and no one wanted to. Zone 7 Kappa was not supposed to have a living human inside it. According to every Vrellian intelligence report, every satellite scan, every thermal analysis conducted over the past 8 months, this zone was a wasteland. The soil was contaminated. The air had a chemical composition that their scientists had described as hostile to most known life forms. The water table was, apparently, completely toxic. And yet. "Pull up the thermal feed," Drev said quietly. Fax pulled it up. There, in the middle of the zone, was a very clear, very warm, very alive heat signature. It was sitting casually in what appeared to be a rocking chair. Drev stared at the feed for a long time. The human, because it was absolutely, undeniably a human, appeared to be drinking something hot. Steam rose from the cup. The signature was completely relaxed. Dangerously, almost offensively relaxed. "How long has this human been here?" Drev asked. Fax scrolled through the records. He scrolled for a while. He kept scrolling. Then he looked up with an expression that Drev had never seen on his lieutenant's face before. It was the expression of someone who had just discovered that the universe was fundamentally more strange than they had previously believed. "Sir," Fax said, "according to our oldest archived scans of this zone, approximately 6 years. The squad collectively stopped breathing. 6 years, Drev repeated. "Give or take 3 months, sir." Sergeant Bryll, the biggest soldier in the squad, the one who had once fought off a Garathian sand beast with nothing but a broken antenna and a bad attitude, took one quiet step backward. No one commented on this. Several others were already calculating how quickly they could return to the transport. "This is a contaminated zone," Drev said, more to himself than anyone else. "The toxicity levels alone should have been fatal within the first 48 hours. "Yes, sir. No living structure of any kind has been recorded surviving here for more than a standard week." "Yes, sir. And a human has been sitting in there. In a rocking chair. For 6 years. Drinking something warm, sir. Based on the steam pattern, we believe it is a beverage." Drev looked back at the sign. He looked at the trees. He looked at the cracked, gray, poisoned earth that stretched out before him. Then his communicator crackled and a voice came through. It was a human voice. It was calm. It was relaxed. It had the particular tone of someone who had not been startled, was not concerned, and had, in fact, been expecting this visit for quite some time. "You boys going to stand at the edge all day," the voice said, "or are you coming in? I just made coffee. Fair warning though. I only have 1 cup. And I am not sharing." No one moved. Bryll took another step back. Drev looked at his lieutenant. Fax looked at Drev. Then they both looked at the thermal feed, where the human heat signature rocked gently back and forth, completely unbothered, in the middle of the most dangerous piece of land on the planet. "Fax," Drev said slowly. "Sir? Get me everything we have on this human." "Already pulling the file, sir." "And fax?" "Sir? Tell Bryll to stop walking backward. He is going to fall into the ditch." A loud splash confirmed that he already had. The file on the human was not long. That was the problem. Most humans that Vrelian intelligence tracked had thick files. Pages of data. Movement records, communication intercepts, professional histories, known associates, dietary preferences, the works. The Vrelian Empire was nothing if not thorough. They had once compiled a 40-page report on a human who sold vegetables at a roadside market. Just in case. This human's file was 4 sentences long. Name, Rudd Calloway. Age, 47. Last known occupation, retired. Notes, do not approach. That was it. 4 sentences and a warning with no explanation attached to it. No context. No reason given. Just, do not approach, sitting there at the bottom of the page like whoever wrote it had been in too much of a hurry, or too much of a panic, to elaborate. Drev read the file 3 times. Then he looked up at Fax. "Who wrote this report?" Fax checked. "Field Agent Vora, sir. From the 3rd Intelligence Division." "Get me Vora." There was a pause. A long one. "Sir," Fax said carefully, "Agent Vora submitted this report, immediately applied for early retirement, moved to a remote moon in the outer sectors, and has not responded to any communication from the division since." Drev closed his eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Then he opened them, straightened his uniform, and looked at the zone. The thermal feed showed Rudd Calloway still rocking. Still drinking his coffee. Still completely, aggressively unbothered. "All right," Drev said. "I am going in." The reaction from his squad was immediate and unanimous. Every single one of them began speaking at the same time. Bryll, still dripping from the ditch, was the loudest. The words varied but the general message was consistent, which was that their commander had lost his mind, that this was against regulation, and that at least 2 of them would like to formally request a transfer before he took another step. Drev held up one hand. They stopped. "Someone has to talk to him," Drev said. "We have been parked on the perimeter of this zone for 11 days waiting for clearance from High Command. High Command has not given us clearance because High Command does not know what this human is or why he is still alive. And the only way we find out is if someone walks in there and asks him directly." He paused. "So. I am going in. Alone. And if I do not come back within 2 hours, Fax has command." Fax did not look pleased about this arrangement. Drev walked in anyway. The zone felt wrong the moment he crossed the perimeter. Not dangerous wrong. Just wrong in the way that a room feels wrong when you walk in and realize someone has quietly rearranged all the furniture by exactly 2 inches. Everything looked like it should be dead. The soil was cracked and pale. The trees were stripped bare. The air had a sharp chemical edge that made his secondary breathing membrane flutter in discomfort. And yet, flowers were growing along the path. Small, yellow, completely unreasonable flowers, growing right out of the cracked poisoned ground like they had not received the memo about the contamination. A vegetable garden sat to the left of the path, thriving and full, with fat red vegetables hanging off their vines like they were showing off. Wind chimes made from old metal scraps hung from a dead tree and made a sound that was, against all logic, pleasant. Rudd Calloway was exactly where the thermal feed had shown him. On a porch. In a rocking chair. With a cup of coffee. He was a broad man with a gray beard and the kind of tan that only comes from spending years outside in places that would kill most things. He looked at Drev the way a person looks at a neighbor who has come to return a borrowed tool. Familiar. Unhurried. Mildly amused. Took you long enough, Rudd said. Sit down. That stump over there is sturdy. I checked. Drev sat on the stump. He looked around at the garden. At the wind chimes. At the small hand-painted sign near the door that said, Home Sweet Home, with a little drawing of a sun underneath it. You have been living here for 6 years, Drev said. It was not a question. 6.5, Rudd corrected, with the mild pride of someone who wanted the record to be accurate. Moved in the spring. Beautiful time of year, spring. Even out here. The soil is toxic. Yep. The water table is contaminated. Filtered it myself. Took about 3 weeks to get right. Had a whole system built by month 2. The air composition is hostile to most known life. Rudd looked at him over the rim of his coffee cup. Most, he said. Not all. Drev stared at him. Why? He finally asked. Why here? Why this place? Rudd was quiet for a moment. He rocked once. Twice. He looked out at his garden with the expression of a man who had thought about this question before, had arrived at his answer a long time ago, and found the answer perfectly satisfying. Cheap land, he said. No neighbors. No noise. Nobody bothering me. He glanced at Drev. Well. Until recently. You knew we were watching. Son, I could see your scouts from my porch. You all have very shiny helmets. Might want to look into that. He took a slow sip of his coffee. I figured someone would eventually work up the nerve to knock. Took 11 days. I have to say, I expected faster. Drev sat with that for a moment. Out past the garden, he could hear his squad through the communicator, whispering among themselves, listening to every word of this conversation with the terrified fascination of people watching someone pet an animal they were absolutely certain was dangerous. Our intelligence file on you, Drev said slowly, has 4 sentences. The agent who wrote it retired immediately afterward and moved to a remote moon. Rudd smiled. It was a warm smile. A completely genuine smile. The smile of a man who was deeply, privately entertained by something he had no intention of fully explaining. Old Vora, he said. Good agent. Smart enough to know when a thing was above his pay grade. He set his coffee cup down on the armrest. You want to know the truth? There is no secret. No mystery. I just found a piece of land nobody wanted, in a spot nobody would come near, and I built myself something good. Took work. Took patience. But I like it here. He looked at Drev steadily. And I intend to keep liking it here. Drev looked at the garden. At the wind chimes. At the yellow flowers growing out of the cracked impossible ground. He thought about the 40-page report on the vegetable cellar. He thought about 6.5 years. He thought about a man who had looked at the most hostile, unwanted, dangerous piece of land on the planet and thought, yes, this will do nicely. He stood up from the stump. We will be leaving the perimeter, Drev said. You will not be disturbed further. Rudd nodded, satisfied. He picked up his coffee cup. Appreciate it. Close the gate on your way out. It keeps the foxes from getting into the tomatoes. Drev walked back through the zone. Past the flowers. Past the garden. past the wind chimes making their unreasonable pleasant sound in the toxic air. He crossed the perimeter, and his entire squad looked at him with wide, desperate eyes, waiting for an explanation that would make sense of everything. He stopped in front of them. He thought about what to say. He thought about Rudd Calloway, sitting on his porch, in the one place in the world that everyone agreed was unlivable, drinking his coffee without a single care in any direction. "Pack up," Drev said. "We are leaving." "Sir, what is he?" Bryll asked. Drev looked back at the zone one last time. At the sign. At the rocking chair visible in the distance. At the small, stubborn yellow flowers along the path. "Retired," Drev said. And that was the last entry ever added to Rudd Calloway's intelligence file. One word, written by Commander Drev Solak, at the bottom of the page, under the original warning that still offered no explanation. Retired. The gate was left closed. The foxes did not get into the tomatoes. And High Command, upon receiving the full report, quietly moved Zone 7 Kappa to a different list entirely. Not the list of dangerous places. Not the list of places under surveillance. The list that simply read, "Leave it alone." Friends, if you are enjoying our videos and want to watch new and exciting sci-fi and HFY stories every day, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to turn on the bell icon so you never miss any of our latest uploads. Like the video and share it with your friends as well, so our community can continue to grow and bring you even more amazing content.